from Institute for Reforming Government, attorney extraordinaire. I guess I'm struggling for his exact title, but I don't think he's into titles. Jay Curtis, how are you?
Great, Meg. Yeah, that was such a great conversation. We almost missed going on air.
I know, we totally did. So I do have to, we'll just say for the record, where is Institute for Reforming? Oh my gosh, easy for me to say. I'll just say, where is IRG headquartered?
Well, so that's a good question. So one of the cool things about IRG, at least from an employee standpoint, is we are essentially virtual. I think we have a P.O. box in Delafield, so in Waukesha County. But what we do is once a month or twice a month, if needed, we get together as a team for a full-day meeting in Wauwatosa. We do one of those virtual or one of those kind of office share agreements. And so we do get together as a team and obviously see each other throughout the month at events. But we're basically virtual, which is great because it allows us to attract people from across the state. So we have some folks that live in the Fox Valley. We have some folks that are in Madison, and then a few of us in southeast Wisconsin. So we have almost the entire state covered, which gives us a real diverse perspective, within the conservative movement, and yeah, so it's a huge benefit. So it's really statewide.
Cool. So, and really, honestly, the reason I asked is because I was trying to get a handle on where you are located so that we can meet up at some point and continue our off-air conversation
Absolutely.
Over lunch. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. All right, so there's much to cover, obviously, and, time is a ticking. Of course, we could... You know what I would do? I would like to do as a refresher for our listeners. There may be someone just joining us for the first time. Can you start by talking about what your organization's mission is and what, obviously your role within IRG?
Sure, yeah. We haven't done that in a while.
Yeah.
So IRG, like I said, we I guess are technically located in Waukesha County, but we really have people across the state, very diverse backgrounds. I would say most of us have some experience in state government, which is really, I think, critical for our organization because there's a lot of good center-right groups in the state. But we really focus on our core, our kind of tagline is kitchen table issues, and with a real expertise in state government. And so, if you had to kind of generally outline what we focus on the tax environment in Wisconsin. We're the only group that aggressively has pushed for elimination of the income tax. I believe there's 10 or 11 states that don't have a state income tax, and not surprisingly, right, those are the fastest growing states. Florida, Tennessee, right, these states that, yes, they have good climates, but they also have really good tax environment. And then you see Iowa, really, they're not, I don't believe they completely eliminated the income tax, but they're going in that direction, streamlining their income tax structure. So we need to do the same thing. I actually just put a tweet out yesterday. ALEC puts out their Rich State, Poor State report, and they've been doing it for, I think, 13, maybe 15 years. So you have a real nice data set, and they basically go through all 50 states and rank the tax structure and the competitiveness of the tax code within each respective state. Well, and so again, because they've been doing it for whatever it is, 15 years, you actually see the trend. And unfortunately, the trend in Wisconsin is not good. The overall tax competitiveness, that's kind of a key score in this report. We used to be, we've gotten as competitive as, I believe, 12 in, I think, 2019. We're down to 26, so very much average. So Chris Reeder and really our whole team at IRG focuses on, we need to make Wisconsin competitive when it comes to taxes because, again, we're competing against 49 other states, some of which have a zero income tax, or even Illinois has just a flat, I believe it's between 4 and 5%, right? So even Illinois, that certainly does a lot of things wrong, you can make an argument they're more competitive when it comes to income tax. So we think that's really critical, particularly now with the kind of the next generation of the workforce that's going to be very agile and mobile, even post-COVID, right? They're used to working virtual. we got to be competitive. There's going to be a lot of people that may even have an option, right, to work for a Wisconsin company, but live anywhere. And if we're not competitive, right, I believe our highest tax bracket is like above 7%. That's just not competitive. So we've taken the step of just saying, let's eliminate the income tax. And yeah, it's bold, and maybe we don't get there, and maybe there's some sort of compromise, but we have to get more competitive. But again, we're going to fight for elimination of the income tax. We have a great team led by Quentin Clavon, and frankly, C.J. Safer, our president, has tremendous backgrounds, respectively, in education reform. I mean, they both have really basically spent their entire careers focusing on, C.J. was in a staff role in the legislature, and then was at Will. Quentin actually was at St. Marcus, really the leading choice school in the state. So both have a kind of an amazing background in education reform, and I would say we're right there with Will when it comes to putting out really groundbreaking research and analysis on education reform, education freedom. Quentin is probably the leading expert in the state in analyzing the hard data. I don't know how he does it, because I feel like all he does is sit around all day looking at DPI spreadsheets, but somebody's got to do it, and Quentin does an amazing job at that. And again, CJ has been a leader in the education reform movement for probably 15 years now. And then the third kind of major category, and again, we do other things, but the third major category would be regulations, administrative reform, and that's kind of my lane. And then again, CJ and Chris and others, and Alicia Gunther, our new addition, she focuses on that as well. But look, regulations have a cost. And we still have 164,000 kind of unique pages of regulations on the books in Wisconsin. States like Idaho have gotten, I believe, below 25,000, to put it in perspective. So on that account, we're not competitive. And again, those have costs. We work with some really great groups. We have ourselves, and I know you had me on your show to talk about our report that discussed the REINS Act, which is kind of one of the tools we have to at least address really expensive regulations where the legislature can review them and reject a regulation that has a cost of $10 million or more over 2 years. The problem is those are just hitting the big ones. So again, we love the REINS Act. We put out a big report. It's now being considered by Congress. Other states have passed it. Wisconsin passed it in 2017. So we're a leader. The problem is that's just addressing really big rules. Every day there's new rules being proposed by the legislature, and even if they're not $10 million, if they're $100,000, but cumulatively we just keep adding, that has a significant impact on the economy. And I'm really passionate about it because it's one of those areas you almost have to know how to market it, because if you just talk about administrative law, I mean, even among lawyers and policy experts, right, people get bored. What I like to lead with is who has built a house, who's run a small business, who runs a school. I mean, just, basically any area of your life. Who works in a manufacturing facility and has to deal with OSHA regs. Regulations impact everything we do, and they're not all bad, right? We want kind of safety. We want clean water. Or you just go down the line. Regulations them are not inherently bad, but we have to recognize there is always a cost, and there has to be a cost-benefit analysis when it comes to regulations. And I think we've gotten away from that in state government. And I guess and I'll finish up here. That would be kind of like the fourth, maybe unofficial category. We, I think, do a really good job just focusing on the operation of state government. People forget, and this is where, my background in state government, the legislature, and frankly our entire team, CJ, Chris, Quentin, Alicia, Courtney, really we all have in various ways had experience with either state government or local government or both. And people need to remember, and I think people get this, but I think sometimes they forget, state government, local governments, they're like any other organization, any other corporation. There's rules on how they operate. They have budgets. And so I think sometimes we forget that, and this is admittedly probably maybe the most boring type of work we do, but it's got to be done, and that is, civil service reform. how the state government, how local governments hire and fire employees, right? How budgets are reviewed on an annual basis. Do we go to zero-based budgeting? And if you look at, there is kind of a moment where it's a little more interesting because at the federal level we see DOGE. That's really all DOGE is, right? Reviewing staffing, reviewing budgets, rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse, having really tough conversations. I mean, look at Harvard right now. Why does Harvard get billions of dollars? I think it's a legitimate question, right? And I think reasonable minds can disagree on that. I would tend to think, look, if you're going to accept federal funding, right, this is different from federal aid, but if you're directly, essentially being funded by government, they can impose some rules. And there are really successful colleges out there like Hillsdale. I do work with Wisconsin College in southeast Wisconsin. There's a lot of really successful higher education institutions that don't get a dime of direct federal funding. Again, their students may get federal aid, but the aid attaches to the students. So again, I think that's just an example of really important conversations that we need to be having to analyze how federal funds, state funds are spent, and how local units of government, state governments, how they actually operate. I think these are important conversations. And again, that would kind of be the fourth thing we do at IRG.
And then there's all the politics. I mean, there's all the various political offices that you follow. I know you did your Supreme Court Watch during this last election period, but I'm curious about what the field of candidates will look like for the gubernatorial race of 2026 here in Wisconsin.
Sure. And thank you for the plug, and that's actually a good reminder. We plan on continuing, so I outlined kind of 4 categories or pillars of what we do at IRG. I guess I do want to add the 5th. We are going to continue with our Court Watch project. Like any organization, we're doing an analysis as to the things we did well. I think we did many things well. Obviously, we're always looking for continual improvement, so we're going to try to do some things better. And now we have to do an assessment. Obviously, when we did our Court Watch project prior to the election, we were trying to prepare for kind of both options, a Schimmel victory and a Crawford victory, because obviously that's going to impact our project. Now that we know that, frankly, I think our project is even more important. Not to say that we wouldn't have done it had Judge Schimmel won. There still would have been a need to, even he and others on the court may get it wrong, but frankly, the need may have been a little less significant. Now, it's going to be even more significant because we have a progressive majority for at least the next 3 years, and so it's going to be really critical that we continue to monitor the court. But then I would note, who we have in the governor's mansion, who we have in AG. I mean, we're certainly not going to take a role in any sort of primary. But the reality is, and I guess we'll even look if there's a Dem primary for any of these offices. We'll look through and see who's running. I mean, the reality is, in this state, the Republicans are the ones that are likely going to advance conservative reforms that we're able to support. And so obviously who is running and what they're running on is going to be something that we are going to pay very close attention to. Again, we're not going to obviously get involved, but knowing who's running and their backgrounds and their experiences, and then frankly putting out our work product and hoping they all adopt, for example, eliminate the income tax. If we want to be competitive, I hope somebody in that primary will run on that. I think it would be a successful thing to run on. But I guess I'll let you tease out. I think there are some good names being floated right now.
All right. Now we're getting to the nitty gritty. Of course, up here, all the talk is our very own 7th Congressional District Congressman Tom Tiffany. And that's no secret, really. I mean, among any circles at this point, he's circulating throughout the state. Any other names? I mean, I've heard a couple other ones, but is there anyone else that jumps out at you on our side?
Yeah, so Congressman Tiffany has been a real leader in the state, right? He was obviously state senator, and having worked in the legislature myself, I mean, I can say firsthand he was a conservative leader. And sometimes you need that. And this is, again, why IRG, I think, has really good perspective to, again, put out objective analysis. I can say from firsthand experience, there's Republicans and then there's conservative leaders. And Congressman Tiffany definitely is in that latter category. He's a conservative leader. He has been, and in some tough areas too, right? From northern Wisconsin, he's led on a lot of environmental issues that are, frankly, complex, and you have an entire bureaucracy that's kind of lined up against you. And now he's obviously at the federal level, frankly, doing the same thing, fighting for the delisting of the gray wolf, which is, I think even people in southeast Wisconsin get that. So, big fan of Congressman Tiffany. He and I will say, when we go out to D.C., sometimes we go to congressional offices and get staff. I think on every one of the IRG trips I've been involved in, we get Congressman Tiffany and his chief of staff. I can't say that about any other congressional office. The other offices are great. We've met with Congressman Fitzgerald as well, but I can say on every single occasion we've gone out to D.C., it's been the congressman himself. But there are some other great names, too. County Executive Josh Shulman out of Washington County is a local leader that has boldly led on conservative reforms. And I think we can't forget about those local leaders. Remember, Scott Walker came out of Milwaukee County as county executive. And I think that experience as county executive in a blue county probably impacted how he governed and frankly, how he was willing to be bold. If you're going to be an outspoken conservative in Milwaukee County, going to the state level is probably no different. And I think that really impacted how he governed. And so Josh has done a great job as county executive, obviously a little different county, a red county, but nevertheless, he's led on some important, election integrity issues. He's thinking outside the box when it comes to housing. A lot of people talk about something like housing. He's actually put into place some pilot programs that have actually tried to attract residents, young families to the county. I can actually tell you, my sister and her brother-in-law recently moved to Washington County because of one of those programs. And they're bringing their 5 kids, obviously, and, that's a success. And so he's, that's an innovative approach that, frankly, Josh could take to the state level. And then I think there's some interesting names. Bill Berrien may not be a household name at this point. He runs a manufacturing facility out of New Berlin, so southeast Wisconsin, former Navy SEAL, and he's actually set up, I guess it's a PAC, kind of like an exploratory committee, made a big hire. Betsy Anke is, I believe, the consultant for that PAC, so that's kind of insider baseball, but she was very instrumental in the Senator Johnson, I think the most recent Senator Johnson campaign, the President Trump's campaign in the state. I think she went on to serve as a consultant for Nikki Haley. And again, for those that think we need to have a big tent, right, that's not a bad thing. She did good work there. So that was a serious hire. I think that's a tell that Bill Berrien is very, very serious. I don't know him, but again, I just kind of generally know his background. But the fact that he set up a PAC like that with, I think, really good staff is a clear tell that he's, at a minimum, very serious about this. So again, to be clear, it's not an announcement. It's kind of, again, I would consider kind of like an exploratory committee. But that means he's definitely serious and he's thinking about it. The other names, so there are some from the state legislature, Senator Teston and Senator Felskowski, both, I think, viewed as good conservative legislators. And there may be a lane. There's always the possibility of a lane that somebody comes out of the state legislature. The challenge there may be you need to have statewide name ID. Congressman Tiffany may have a leg up there, but you never know. Both Teston and Belskowski are good conservative reformers, and so there could be a state legislative lane. And then let's call it left field. There could be some surprises. So Eric Hovde, I have seen his name, obviously ran a tough campaign against an entrenched incumbent. Obviously, we all wanted him to win, and that was a real disappointing loss. But But I hope people realize running against somebody like Senator Baldwin is really tough. And we're talking that's the type of race that we're at the point now with these Senate races. These are literally national races, right? They're funded nationally. Outside consultants come in. D.C. tracks them closely. These are effectively national races. So they're tough. And then when you throw in the incumbency advantage, that was always going to be an uphill battle, and he almost pulled it out. So if he were to decide to make a run at governor, I think he would be very relevant. I'm just making sure I'm not missing any. One name, the other name, and then I'll stop. So Matt Newman is a name that every once in a while you hear floated. His father served one term in Congress. Matt's a great guy, Southeast Wisconsin-based, has a very successful building company, residential homes, and kind of an innovative thinker. We've met with him on policy issues. I can tell you he's a serious policy wonk, and I think he has a really good background. So we have good candidates. And I guess my final point on this, Meg, would be, I know you and I have been talking about the Supreme Court race. Look, the reality is Jimmo had money. He actually outraised, when you combine outside groups, Susan Crawford. He himself was a good candidate. I think if you're looking at a variable, it was the messaging. And so, translating that or applying that to the gubernatorial race, I think we're going to have good candidates. Some of them are going to be independent funders, and if not, I'm confident there's still going to be. We can't keep losing. At some point, we have to win. But I still think we're at the point where some of these outside groups, outside funders, are going to be willing to take another shot to win back the East Wing. Right. So our governor operates out of the East Wing, not the West Wing. I think the money will be there, and so then it comes down to messaging. Again, and this is where groups like IRG are going to continue to put out good work product, and hope these candidates are willing to run with some of that messaging. Because again, I think we're going to have some good candidates. I think that the people that we just mentioned, they're serious. A lot of them have very good background as reformers. And so whoever comes out of that primary, I don't see a bad one on that list, or frankly anything that should concern anybody. And so, to your point earlier, let's have a good primary and let the best man or woman win, and then we all get behind them.
Well, and we're out of time, but I just want to quickly ask. I generally consult my Magic 8 Ball. I literally have one in the studio. So anytime, you're always welcome in studio sometime if you want to make the trek up here. But I did ask the Magic 8 Ball if Tony Evers is going to run for re-election, and it told me cannot predict now. Would you say the same thing as the Magic 8 Ball?
I did some Milwaukee talk radio yesterday, and they asked me the same question, and I'll be consistent. I guess in a scenario like this, I kind of flip the question on its head, and I ask, why would the person not do it? And when I look at it from that angle, I guess I don't see a reason why Governor Evers doesn't run again. Everybody looks at it as a scenario where he served 2 terms. He's not a spring chicken, as they say. But, again, I flip that on its head. He's served 2 terms, still has above a pretty solid, I think, 54% approval rating. Ben Wickler, and we have to talk about the state party respectively at some point. Ben Wickler has built a machine. Now, he's moving on, but I don't think he's leaving the state, so he's going to still be around. And the reality is, I looked at the numbers from 24, 57 million raised by the Dems, 29 million raised by the Republicans. I mean, we're just getting trounced when it comes to fundraising. So in other words, for Evers, the infrastructure is going to be there. Obviously, health is a factor, and it seems like he's healthy. And so I guess my prediction is, unless there's something to indicate that there's a real reason for him not to do it, I think he runs for a 3rd term.
All right. Well, there you have it. So, Jay Curtis, as always, we run out of time. Always a delight to chat with you. Look forward to our next conversation. You're welcome up here anytime, or we can meet in between. Obviously not for the show. We can't meet in between, but would like to, continue our off-air conversation. So,
yeah, well, Meg, we come up there a lot during summer. We love Vilas County. That's where we go for our summer vacations. And so, we'll do something this summer. We'll stop on the way up. You'll see the whole crew.
All right. Well, and, full disclosure, we're up north quite a bit too, so maybe we can meet up there because it's way more fun up north. So we'll make it happen. Hey, thanks again, Jake Curtis from Institute for Reforming Government, and if I remember correctly, reforminggovernment.org.
You got it.
All right. Hey, have a great day. Thank you again.
You too. Thanks, Meg.
See you, Jake.